Hi, I'm Morris Pichon, co-publisher of the newsletter Pacoima Today. We are interviewing Mr. Terrence Gomes, who is a candidate for the 7th Council District of the City of Los Angeles. I'd like to say welcome.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Morris, and to be able to give the opportunity to the people in Pacoima and CD7 to hear some of my positions.
Good. We got several questions we have recorded. It says street vending.
Yes, sir.
It says the city wants to issue permits. What would be the consequences for the vending without permits? If they fail to get permits, would it be a penalty or something? Or how do you decriminalize breaking the law of operating without the permits? Or how do they plan to implement the monitoring and the enforcement of the system? Have been determined.
Absolutely, Morris. I'm very familiar with the actual street vending ordinance because as the president of the Los Angeles Neighborhood Council Coalition, we actually created the current regulations that are before City Council, mainly the 2 vendors per block, getting permission by the actual brick and mortar merchants that are on the block so that there's, depending upon the competition that would go between them. But when it really comes to the enforcement, we really need enforcement and permitting for the simple fact of public safety. What was to happen if a child was to get sick from eating off of a cart from a street vendor? I mean, we require it of our brick and mortar merchants, of our restaurants, plus also it's public property. So what happens? Does that create the liability for the city now that we've allowed them? So that's why it's very important to have the permitting process in place for that and to enforce it.
Oh, good. Another question we have, a lot of citizens are concerned about it, is the homelessness. Homelessness that's prevalent throughout the community and prevalent throughout Los Angeles, I understand.
Absolutely.
The voters passed a proposition that will provide housing, but who will be paying the utilities and providing the food and services like cleaning up and stuff at these houses, these homes that was going to be provided?
Well, also as president of the Los Angeles Neighborhood Council Coalition, back on January 3rd, 2015, we got together and created a motion that went to the City Council that had to deal specifically with the homeless situation and crisis. Because at that time there were 37,000 homeless people on the streets in the city of Los Angeles. And what we had looked at was, one was for the city to declare a state of emergency, which both the mayor and Council President Herb Wesson had declared 4 months after our motion. We also recommended to have $150 million funded for the homeless crisis. And the third part of it was to actually do an inventory of all the city buildings, especially the ones that were either vacant or underutilized, and also all the abated motels, so that we could look to see what we had so that we could start using those facilities for homeless housing and also for transitional housing. So that's where we started with that. Now, as to who's paying for it, well, to be honest with you, it'll be the taxpayers. The voters passed Measure HHH, which was $1.2 billion, to be able to do 10,000 units in 10 years. That's really too little, too late. We need to start now. We need to start today. And we really need to start increasing housing for the homeless right now. And I believe part of it should be rapid rehousing for people who have just recently been homeless. You know, they lost a job because of family circumstance, losing a job, losing their apartment. That's what we have to take care of. Because you have other people who have mental health issues, they got drug addictions. And when I talk to them, when they're homeless, they really have a trust issue. They also feel that when they go into like a shelter, they feel that it's unsafe. They feel it's unsanitary. And this is what people are saying on the streets. And that's one of the reasons why they don't want to go to a shelter. So we also need to reevaluate the shelters we have. And not only the cold weather ones, but also the ones that provide service throughout the year. Because if these are the complaints and concerns that our homeless have, we really need to step it up and make sure that it's warm and welcoming to them.
Do we have currently any city agency that actually inspect these hotels? Because I understand there's several of them where the homeless people can go at night. It's open till that night.
Right.
When it's cold, when it's raining. Do we have a city agency that actually?
Well, we have
monitors
city departments that actually do inspections and all that, and we need to be utilizing to make sure that if there are violations, that those violations get cured.
Yeah. Okay. The next question we have is about city services. Many of us are very concerned about this. In Pacoima, particularly, we have a lot of bulky items just sitting on the sidewalk. We have abandoned vehicles in the community. Street repair is important to us because we got a lot of potholes. Why would the city want to increase their responsibility and liabilities when they can't even meet the basic needs?
Well, when you look at whether it's street repair, whether it's abandoned vehicles, bulky items being either on the street or illegal dumping for that matter, that is the job of the city. That is our basic core services that we should be doing and being focused on. And as council member, I would make sure, first, before I was even in office, once I'm elected, I would meet with the city I would meet with the city heads of those departments and find out why Pacoima, Sylmar, Mission Hills, Lakeview Terrace, Shadow Hills, Sunland Tahunga are not receiving their fair share of services, and to find out what I would need to do to be able to get those services into the areas. Also Pacoima, if I did say that.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure I include everybody. But that's what we need to do. We got to make sure those are core services that we need to make sure that because people pay their taxes for it, they expect it. And I would make sure that we get those done in this community.
Many people in Pacoima are very conscious of the quality of life issues that we just mentioned.
Right.
And it's important to us.
Right. And one of them is the illegal dumping. Because currently right now, the fine for illegal dumping is so low that some of the commercial haulers in that consider it as a cost of doing business. And if they get caught, they'll just pay it.
Yeah.
I'm the architect of a motion that's right now before City Council that raises up to the state maximum of $10,000 per incident as a fine.
That would discourage people from dumping.
It would definitely. And then we would also have more of street services, their enforcement department actually doing more enforcement out there to make sure that it's taken care of.
Yeah, that's very important to us who live in this community. Another question, next question, was about the use of public funds for legal services for the immigrant community. Wouldn't this put the city at risk of lawsuits for the misuse of taxpayers' dollars?
It possibly could. I'm not sure. I would have to defer that to Mike Fuhrer, who's the city attorney. But we really have to look at how we're using our tax dollars. Now, one of the things the city has said, and Chief Beck has said that too from the Los Angeles Police Department, he said that he won't use his officers for immigration enforcement because that's a federal issue. So why are we commingling our tax dollars with a federal issue? I mean, there are many foundations out there that I'm sure would be more than happy to help with the litigation of that, because that is a civil problem.
Yeah, it is.
And when we're looking at what the city's core mission is, what their services they are to provide, does that fall into its core mission of what we should be doing? Is that fixing the potholes? Is that fixing the street lights? Making sure that the police show up when you have an emergency call? Those are things I'm more concerned of right now, though, because people are here right now.
Yeah.
And without having those services, I mean, when somebody has a heart attack, is the fire department going to be coming if we're spending our money elsewhere?
Yeah, we all wonder about that.
But that's very important, that we got to make sure that our core services are actually taken care of, and that's a priority.
We've had several questions concerning long-term community nonprofits in this community. They end up losing their positions in city buildings or losing their city funds. Do you have any plans or methods of ensuring that the long-term nonprofits in the area are actually getting their fair share of the dollars, because some feel that they haven't been getting a fair share.
Well, that's one thing we have to look at, though, which is equitable. Because when you look at nonprofits, they're very important into the scheme of the city itself, though, because there are many things that the city itself cannot do, whether because of by law or because we just don't have the resources for it. But when you look at a nonprofit, they fill that gap and they fill the need of the community that needs it. I think one of the things we need to do in CD7 is to reassess the nonprofits that are in our area. See where there's duplication of services, put out a request for qualification to see what services are being provided by those nonprofits, to see how it meets the needs of the community, and also that we're not having duplication of the exact same service. Because if they're duplicating services and the community doesn't need all those services, then we could look at where we could allocate the money somewhere else. So, plus also I feel that we need, from what I've heard from community members when I've been knocking on doors, and it didn't matter what community I was in, they're always concerned about where the money's gone in CD7.
Yes, that's real.
Absolutely, I've heard that time and time again. They feel that there's no accountability, there's no transparency. So one of the first things I'm going to do when I'm elected, one, is to work with the controller, Ron Galprin, to get it where on the CD7 council website is to put all the funds and see what the balances are of those funds. Whether it's the discretionary fund, whether it's community benefit fund, whether it's the mitigation fund, develop all those funds for CD7 to see where they're actually at. And then I'd also ask them too to do a 10-year audit of all those accounts so that we can make sure to see where the money's gone and if it was used correctly. Plus also there may be funds there that we never use that sometimes accounts get forgotten. So we got to see what money is available for that. And then once we have that though, then I would then have a community advisory committee to be formed so that they could also help with how the money should be spent throughout the city, or throughout CD7, I should say.
So this information would be available to
Anybody who went on the website, they would see exactly what money was spent and where it went and where the checks went.
I think a lot of people would like to see that.
Well, it's very important. It's the taxpayers' money. It's not my money. It's not City Hall's money. It's the taxpayer money. And that's one of the issues we really have to get back to, is to the basics of what the city does and what we're required to do.
Oh,
And one of them is to make sure you know where your money's being spent.
yes. That's important to everybody I talk to.
Absolutely. That's what I've heard from going door to door.
Well, I want to thank you for coming to Pacoima and sharing your ideas with the public, because we all need to know, we all need to hear what your intentions are in order to make this a better place to live.
Well, it is.
To look after our quality of life issues.
Absolutely. It's the whole district. I mean, I've been all over the district, knocking on doors, talking to people. And I just want to say, though, never forget, when you elect me, you're hiring me to be able to fulfill the needs of what this community needs to improve quality of life. And remember, I will listen, we will talk, and I will act to make sure that we get things done in CD7.
Thank you, Terrence.
Thank you. So remember, on March 7th, vote for me, Terrence Gomes, for City Council. For additional information, go to my website, www.gomesforla.com. And remember, we talk, I will listen, and I will act. Thank you, Morris.
Thank you, Terrence.